What's up guys, and welcome back to the infamous project. We're over here at my other shop, which now has a lift installed, so I'm very excited about that. I'm not totally outfitted in here yet because I need to get a nice balance of tools brought over here, and I'm gonna make like a foxbody specific toolkit and making sure that I just have all the basics and the necessities, because foxbodies really don't take much. And speaking of not needing much, I got some boxes and bags of tools over there, and I'm hoping I grabbed everything that I need because it is time for this 88 Saleen to lose its drivetrain. So for you guys that were looking for an update on this car, well, here it is. I'm going to suck the life right out of this thing. The motor's coming out, the transmission's coming out. The car is gonna remain a roller, so the diff and the front end will stay in the car, but the motor, transmission will be sold, and the wheels and tires will end up getting sold. The rear will end up leaving until I decide exactly what I'm gonna do with this thing. I'm not sure, I'm almost leaning towards putting a Godzilla in it, but we'll see what happens here in the future. For now, it's just about wrenching and getting this drivetrain out, and this is gonna be the last, maybe startup. I'm gonna see if this thing will fire up one last time before it won't fire up in this car ever again. The car's last hoorah. That's it. Time to start draining some coolant, disconnecting brackets, lines, everything else. Got a lot of turbo piping in here, intercooler, all of those things. I'm gonna try and keep as much as I can together, and we will be pulling the motor out separate. We'll take the transmission out after the fact, so we'll be trying to get it all the bell housing bolts down on the backside here. It's really business as usual. In fact, it should be even easier, because when I was underneath this thing, I noticed that there was actually no bolts on the motor mounts on the driver's side. There's only one on the passenger side on this tubular K-member. So it should actually be pretty straightforward. So let's get to it. A couple hours of interrupted wrenching because a friend stopped by and picked up his 335 race car. He's got track day tomorrow, but did manage to get quite a bit of headway on the underside and top side of this motor. So pretty much all of the intercooler piping, all of that is removed. There's a little bit of exhaust left. Motor mounts are loose, and that's pretty much it in terms of wiring. The fuel's disconnected, all of that stuff. Race cars are actually really easy to work on. You know, when you got tubular K members and big fittings and everything has been put and taken apart so many times, it's pretty easy to get everything disconnected. So we're pretty much good here on the underside. We'll come back tomorrow and get a chain on the cherry picker, lift this motor out, and then we'll be taking the transmission out of there as well, and be able to give you guys a full assessment of the underside of the car, so we can see exactly how they did the mini tub, how everything is connected and linked up, especially with that 9-inch rear end in the back. And you guys will be able to see what I got myself into, because there's a couple little gremlins hiding that I'm looking at right now. And well, I kind of expected it, but it's okay because it is a Saleen. So I was busy the other day and pulled all of the turbo, intercooler, the motor, transmission, exhaust, everything off of the car. As you can see, it's sitting down here. So everything came out quite easily. Got everything sitting down here, and it's all sold, so please don't ask if I'm selling any of it. I had posted it up on my Instagram and I was overwhelmed with DMs, and well, none of this stuff lasted. I think everybody is in for some race car stuff right now with some supply chain issues, and well, maybe I just had it priced right, who knows. But all of that is sold. And if we look inside the engine bay here, you can see we have a big empty hole. What's left to take out on the Saleen here? Well, the wiring harness is going to come out, and here's the computer. So it was actually running on a Stinger Performance Pimp XS, and you know, the car did run, it did idle. My understanding was it needed the tune for the E85, but needless to say, all of this is coming out. And actually, this is going to be up for grabs. If anybody is interested, make sure you hit me up through my website, please. It's the easiest way to get a hold of me, so I can remember who you are and not get lost in private messages or anything like that. The whole fuel system is going to come out of the car, so we got braided lines all the way to the back with an Aeromotive 1000. The fuel cell is back there. K-member is going to be coming out at some point. No, obviously I don't want the car to not be a roller, but that'll probably be something for a later date. You can see there's a Flaming River manual steering rack in it. It's got a manual brake setup. That's going to be coming out as well. And let me show you guys some things that I found with this car and the underside, so you guys can actually see what all of this mini tub and everything else looks like from the underside. So one of the biggest questions that I had about this car personally is, why did somebody cut it up and turn it into a race car? There could be a couple theories behind it. Things like, well, the cars weren't worth that much money back in the day. Somebody just had an endless supply of funds and just didn't give a shit, so on and so forth. But I think I found something that might have been related to the reason on why this car ended up getting cut up. So if we look under here, first thing you're going to notice, that lower part of the rad support, this guy is absolutely trashed. And whether it went up on a curb or who knows, hit something, got smucked, we don't know. But let's look a little bit closer here. Look at the way that the front frame rail comes out to this lower part of the rad support. Now, obviously we can see that they've hacked out a huge section there, which would be the section right here. But again, look at these welds. And now if we carry down along this frame rail, look at right here. So you can see that this is pretty much cracked right here, and it's almost buckled. So something has happened and it's buckled in here. If we look on the passenger side, we can see this right here as well, where it's just creased and buckled. If we look up in that apron, now that's a hard one to tell, right? Because clearly they've cut and beat for clearance purposes, probably for turbo piping and whatnot. You can actually see some Bondo up in there, and I'm not sure if that was someone's attempt to try and clean some stuff up, or that Bondo was part of a repair before. Now I need to take these guys off, which are actually pretty neat panels. I do like that. You know, cleans up the engine bay quite nicely without shaving stuff and hiding things. So I'm thinking something happened to the front end of this car. I think it was hit, it got in an accident. Clearly it's not in the Carfax report. So maybe somebody was having fun one night, went sideways with the car, hit the rhubarb, smashed into something. Maybe they managed to get the car home before anything was reported, and maybe sold the car off to somebody, and somebody else said, oh, well, you know what? It's kind of wrecked in the front, no big deal. I'll start cutting, welding, banging, and turn it into a race car. So I think that maybe that's what happened, or maybe something underneath, like maybe it went over something, you know, messed up the lower part of the rad support, maybe it hit the K-member. I'm just trying to envision what happened here and why this section on both sides are buckled out. Like almost maybe it went over here and just struck the K-member and kind of tweaked things like this and caused that area to buckle. I don't know. If any of you guys have an idea of what maybe could have happened to this car, you know, let me know your thoughts. You know, in terms of crash zones or crinkle zones as they call them. You know, like looking back here, this looks pretty straight on this side. But up over here, you know, things are kind of a little bit different. If we look on this over here, I got a little bit of rust right here. And looks like somebody had jacked the car up on the floor. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, there's a lot to fix and straighten out here. These lovely pinch welds that people jack up on and cause the fender to stick out like this. You know, that's easily fixed by smashing that all forward. If you guys didn't see my video on how I fixed it on this car, make sure you check that out. Looking on the passenger side over here, it's not horrible, but same thing, pinch welds all jacked up. And my apologies guys, I should have brought a light so that you could have seen a little bit better. Hopefully the GoPro is doing its job at trying to make things look better in the dark. You can see we got a drive shaft safety loop here. It's all welded up. And then we can see how they tied into the subframes. So subframes go all the way back. So here we can see the Ford 9-inch rear end. And we got our Aeromotive 1000 system here with the fuel cell in the back. So that'll almost likely be coming out. And then if we look up in here, we can see where the rear frame rails have been cut to clear those big tires. Hatch floor pan where it's all been cut out. And then all of our tube steel and all of the fab work that was done. Got our QA1 coilover system in the back here. And again, that big monstrous Ford 9-inch. You can see where that tube comes all the way down and then rejoins the frame rail here in the front. So the one big challenge here that if I wanted to go back to the factory rear end, you can see, so the lower control arms that would normally mount right there, while we're missing that back section behind the torque boxes there, that would allow us to mount those up. Same thing obviously on this side, and then up there where the tube steel is coming through for the new rear frame rail area is where the upper control arms would go. And again, none of that is there. You can see all up in the front inner fender section here, still have the horns hooked up. We got a bunch of relays there. You can see they had all the wiring harness routed up inside here. No inner fenders, so kind of all exposed. All right guys, so as the car's coming down, you know, it's gonna be a project and a half, and I can't tell you how quickly I'm gonna get going at it. My biggest thing was trying to recoup a lot of my initial investment on this car. So selling off the drivetrain and all of the race car related parts that I won't be using in the future. And you guys are probably wondering, well, what's the direction of this car gonna be? And, well, I'm not 100% sure yet. Part of me is thinking maybe I should put a Godzilla motor in here. And obviously I'm gonna be going for a little bit more of a stance, suspension, brake performing car, not so much a drag race car. So I was also thinking of maybe doing like a Detch/Saleen hybrid build. So maybe I'd use Detch springs, Detch brakes. Clearly we're gonna be leaving the Saleen kit and all of the Saleen pieces that belong to the car, but trying to use a bunch of Detch components that I have laying around. I think I have an extra Detch panhard bar and a couple other things, set of grabbers in the rear. So if it's your first time hearing this word Detch that I'm talking about, well, Detch did a lot of similar things that Saleen did back in the day. However, they were based out of Canada. So a lot of suspension, braking, and other performance upgrades were available. And while Detch is something that is quite close to me, being Canadian and growing up with those cars. So I think if there was a way to do a hybrid between the two, especially with this car, you know, being so far away from original, it kind of gives me a blank canvas to build it the way that I would want to build it. So if you guys have any ideas, I know I've asked it before, but now you guys get a little bit of a better idea and insight of exactly what I'm in for in terms of how much change has happened to the rear section of this car, and now finding out some of the gremlins that live in the front section of this car. Because now part of me is wondering, should I actually be changing the whole front section, rad support right up to the strut towers and getting all of that cleaned up? I think I'm just gonna have to bite that bullet based on what I see here. So there you guys have it. The update on the Saleen, update on the twin turbo Coyote notch. There's gonna be a lot more to come in the pipeline here soon, so be sure to stay tuned to the channel and like, subscribe, do all those other good things, and especially if you followed along all the way to the end of this video. Much appreciated for your support as always, and we'll see you guys next time.